Okay, so this is a pre-recording for the class on August the 2nd, Sunday, the 4 o'clock Path to Enlightenment class from the Tibetan Buddhist Society in New York. And it's a pre-recording. It'll probably never see the light of day. It might only be used if we have problems with our streaming. So that's why I'm doing it. So for that reason, we're just going to do an abbreviation, just the Refuge and Bodhicitta. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Excuse me. So we'll get straight on with the class. We won't do a meditation because, again, it's a pre-recording, probably will never be used, and also it's Friday night after a long week at work. So we'll just get on with the talk. Thank you. And we will look at... briefly, we'll look at the last two of the 6 perfections. So we've already looked at the perfection of generosity, perfection of ethics, perfection of patience, perfection of joyous effort. And Geshe in the Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism, this classic text, he quite briefly looks at the perfection of concentration and perfections of wisdom, because those subjects are covered in great detail in the following chapters on calm abiding and special insight. So we'll just finish off the perfections. And we'll look starting on page 764. And Geshe here gives a definition of the concentration. Concentration is a mental factor that is capable of abiding one-pointedly on an object of virtue without distraction. When concentration is motivated by bodhicitta, it becomes a perfection of concentration. So, it sounds very simple. Just staying with the object one-pointedly, observing any object. What could be more simple than that? Basically just asking us to look clearly for a duration of time. But when we practice it, then we, as everyone knows, it's not so easy. And it's almost like our mind is focus phobic. It veers away from staying on any one thing for any length of time. And most of us have also got the smartphone mind, where we're continuously checking our smartphones for new stimulations and new whatever messages or news or Facebook posts or whatever. But basically it means our mind's jumping around. It's not used to abiding one-pointedly on any one thing. So concentration here is referring to mental consciousness, not, for example, visual consciousness. So if we're staring at a flower, one pointedly without distraction, that's not concentration, because the object has to be a mental object. So for us, that means what's called generic image, or a concept. So in Tibetan Buddhism, there's the presentation of the different types of mind. I think Prasangika view generally regards direct perception, such as with our sense consciousnesses, for example, our eye consciousness. Then the object of that direct perception is an impermanent object. It's a specifically characterized impermanent object, so it's changing moment by moment by moment. And our eyesight is directly apprehending that. Whereas the mental consciousness is apprehending what's called a generic image, or it's more of a, for example, your idea of what a fire is, or your idea of what your partner is, or your mother, or your children. It's so those mental images, again, I think in a Prasangika view, generally presented as being generally characterized objects. They're not changing moment by moment. They're actually sort of fixed. And the reason for that is because the mind arrives at them through a negation of the non-object. So it's an apprehension of the opposite of the negative. So, for example, if you have a concept of a fire, it's presented that you're actually apprehending non-fire. So you've sort of got an outline about what is not fire, and you're excluding. It's an exclusion of what's not fire. So non-fire. So it's a generic image. It's not an individual thing that's changing continuously, step by step, moment by moment. It's a generality. So therefore, you can establish a single point of concentration on that object. So some of the other terms used to describe concentration are meditative stabilization, or mental stabilization, and sometimes mental quiescence. So sometimes that's used for calm abiding. I think it might also be used for concentration, but it's a nice word anyway, isn't it? Mental quiescence, like quiet essence of quietness. So Pabonka Rinpoche, in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, there was the Path to Enlightenment that was written down by His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche as a teaching of Pabonka's. He said that know that through special insight, having great mental quiescence, you will destroy your delusions. Thus from the start, seek mental quiescence. So the perfection of concentration is said to be a cause of the experience of continuous joy, a sort of a very blissful mind, a very joyful mind. So, and it's overcome, sort of removed all the agitation and stress and so on from your your mind and also from your body. So it's apparently very joyful. And with it, we're able to easily overcome hindrances and obstructions, and easily gain realizations, because the mind has become very powerful. We can the definition of meditation, thoroughly and deeply acquainting the mind with virtue. So if we've developed good concentration or perfect concentration, then we can very, very deeply and very thoroughly pervade our mind with whatever Dharma we're focusing on, whatever object of virtue. So then it can have a big effect. We gain realizations. So without concentration, it's hard for us to affect our mind. We might study and practice and do sort of meritorious activities, but we're not. It takes a long time to affect the more subtle or the deeper part of ourselves. So, certainly my experience, and probably the experience of most people listening, is that you meditate on patience, then 10 minutes later you're upset, or you're talking a bit too strongly or too aggressively at someone. So So there's three different types of concentration. There's concentrations of the desire realm, concentrations of the form realm, and those of the formless realm. And they're progressively more subtle, those concentrations. And also there's division. Geshe gives a division of concentration here into mundane and super-mundane. So mundane or worldly concentration is, for example, motivated. We're meditating, motivated by we're after a good rebirth, or what's the other one? Yeah, or we might be motivated by a God realm rebirth, or we're aspiring for clairvoyance. So there's 5 or 6 different types of clairvoyance, and the dominant cause, or the main cause of those, is a mind of actual concentration. So concentration is the main cause of having the clarity of this direct knowing called clairvoyance. And Geshe goes into that a bit in his fundamental potential for enlightenment. On page 64 to 65, it talks about the clairvoyance. Yes, which part was I going to quote? I'll quote the verse from Maitreya's ornament for the Mahayana Sutras. Potential is known as like gold, a source of limitless virtue, possessing wisdom and purity, and also a source of powers. So, have I quoted? Yeah. So there's a bit there about the 6 clairvoyances are explained in Nagarjuna's precious garland of advice to a king as the divine eye, the divine ear, knowledge of others' minds, magical emanations, memory of former lives, and knowledge of the extinction of contaminations. The definition of clairvoyance in general is established from the viewpoint of directly perceiving an object by relying on a mind of actual concentration as the dominant condition. And Geshe gives the 6 types of clairvoyance. So the divine eyes, being able to perceive subtle and gross forms of various realms. Yeah, and divine ear is to hear things long distance away. Knowledge of others' minds is self-evident. It's directly perceiving others' minds, so we're able to help them much more precisely. Magical emanations is where the clairvoyant can manifest different forms. Clairvoyant memory of former lives, so you know directly your previous rebirths, and extinction of contaminations. That's with the abandonment of the obstructions to liberation. So, yeah, so there's the clairvoyance. So they're basically direct knowing. I think there's presented different mental direct perceivers. So it's like there's yogic direct perceiver and mental direct perceivers. And this is where you just know something, you know it directly as it is through the power of your mind. And the main cause of that is concentration. So simply clearing all the clutter out of our minds allows us to become very still and have great clarity. And then the mind has enormous power, and it can do things that we in our present state can't do. Just through direct knowing. And many people who stayed with Geshe, many of the residents and so on, very strongly felt or experienced Geshe's clairvoyance, although he would never say he had these capacities. Sometimes he demonstrated a few things which really physics couldn't explain. Okay, so that's the perfection of concentration. There's a little bit more. So, and supramundane is motivated by renunciation. So renunciation, the wish to be free of suffering and all its causes, and particularly recognizing pervasive suffering that really defines Buddhist renunciation. Because everyone wants to get rid of pain. Animals want to get rid of pain and causes of pain, like if they've got a splinter. But to renounce pervasive suffering, the recognition that every moment of psychic existence is actually pervaded by unsatisfactoriness. So, calm abiding is one type of concentration, and as I mentioned earlier, if concentration is aligned with bodhicitta, then it becomes a perfection of concentration. So, to get to that point, we've got to, quite often if we have busy life, then you sit down on your meditation cushion, you plonk down, say, for 20 minutes or half an hour, and you think you've done pretty well, just making the effort to sit down. But if we just establish a habit of drifting off and relaxing, because and it's sort of a natural thing to do, because if you have a really busy life, then it's the only time you can just relax the mind and let it do its own thing. So it's quite easy to get into the habit of not making much effort in your meditation, but enjoying having that time of just drifting around. But if we do that, then we're losing the opportunity to actually develop our concentration. Yeah. So I'll quote from Lord Tsongkhapa in his extensive stages of the path, the great exposition of the stages of the path, where he said, even if you are unable to fully develop the meditative stabilizations, you must strive to train from time to time in one point in concentration to whatever extent you are able. If you never give up your effort, even in this life, your mind will become steadily less distracted, making your accumulations of virtue very powerful. In future lives, as the Questions of Subahu Sutra says, you will have physical and mental bliss and a joyful mind, thereby easily completing the perfection of meditative stabilization. So I'll just very briefly step back to the bodhicitta branch vows, because there's three that refer to how we have the commitment. Vows 24 to 26. So vow 24 is not seeking the meaning of concentration, although you need to develop concentration. If through malice or laziness you refuse to seek out instruction and advice, you incur this downfall. You should make an effort to listen, think, and meditate on the development of concentration. And 25 is not removing the obstacles to concentration. There are 5 obstacles: agitation and regret, malicious thoughts, sleep and sloth, longing, desire, and doubt. Not making an effort to overcome these obstacles when they arise causes you to break this branch vow. Then the last one is viewing the taste of concentration as being its main quality. So the taste of concentration refers to the bliss and pliancy that arise from the practice. The main purpose of concentration is to prepare the mind to engage the very subtle object that is the true nature of phenomena, its emptiness. So if we get distracted and just sort of enjoy being in this blissful, relaxed, concentrated state, then we're missing the point. Okay. So then Geshe goes to the ancillaries, practicing with the ancillaries, and has the 3 supreme qualities, which are the same for each perfection. So to enhance, make our practice more powerful, enhance the merit, enhance our wisdom, we should try and practice concentration with at least these 3 supreme qualities. So the first one's supreme reliance, and that's on bodhicitta to motivate us. And that's the cause of accumulating great merit. And that's the cause of the form bodies of the Buddha, the enjoyment and emanation bodies. The second is supreme method. So that's using, focusing on the 3 cycles of emptiness, or the 3 circles of emptiness. So the emptiness of the meditator and the object of meditation, say the image of the Buddha you're visualizing, or whatever, and also the act of meditating. And it's seen that all of these things, they can't support themselves. They're merely designated, merely imputed. They're not substantially existent, and so on. And the last is supreme dedication to enlightenment. So the result is we can't destroy that merit. If we get upset afterwards, then we can't destroy that merit. So I won't go into the 6 supreme qualities. you can have a look at those with regards to meditation, with concentration. But again, they're the same for each perfection. And then Geshe on page 768 describes concentration with all 6 perfections. So again, this is a way of making our time spent on the cushion vastly more beneficial for us. And so practicing generosity with concentration. This is described as showing others how to concentrate. So maybe informally, just if someone wants to learn a bit of meditation or just to settle the mind, and giving them 1 or 2 tips, or it can be formal instruction. So the second one is ethics with concentration. So that means we practice our concentration without breaking our vows and trying to, for example, if we're on retreat, then it's quite easy to get irritable or grumpy, especially if you're used to your own space, and suddenly you're in a shared room with someone who snores, and you're not getting any sleep, and then you're sitting in the temple, you're next to someone who's always burping and farting, then or making noises, strange noise. Then keeping our vows by not yelling at them. Then patience with concentration. So it requires a great deal of patience to develop concentration, because the mind's the mind gets bored and it wants to move away from that object of concentration and find some stimulation elsewhere. And we start focusing on the pain in our knees and our back and so on. So we need patience with concentration. Then joyous effort with concentration, and recognizing what a wonderful thing it is that we're actually, in this day and age when the world's getting faster and faster and more agitation, then we're actually settling down to do this profound practice. Very powerful thing for the mind. And so concentrating with great joy and with as much energy as we can muster. Then concentration with concentration is to establish the habit of concentration and the aspiration to develop our concentration in the future. And wisdom with concentration is using our own wisdom, our own ability to figure out, are we doing this right? Where's my mind at the moment? What do I need to do to improve my concentration? What's the antidote to that delusion that's arising? So using our wisdom to really skillfully try to develop the mind, using the methods, the Dharma methods provided. So that's, as I said, it's very brief coverage of the perfection of concentration, and we'll look later on in the chapter on calm abiding in much more detail on what are the, for example, the obstacles to concentration and the various powers that enable us to overcome those obstacles. What are the stages of concentration and so on. And look more in what are the benefits of concentration. So next on page 771, Geshe talks of the perfection of wisdom. And 771, the perfection of wisdom. And he says, following the perfection of concentration, we move to the 6th of the Bodhisattva's activities, the perfection of wisdom. It too is considered in 5 parts. The nature of wisdom, how one is led to meditate on wisdom, divisions of wisdom, practicing wisdom with the ancillaries and the summary. So the nature of wisdom. So not many of us would really associate wisdom with ourselves, really. I don't think so. If you ask many people, have you got much wisdom, then it's sort of hard to say yes to that question. So in ordinary language, wisdom's normally associated with sort of life knowledge and things to do maybe with the bigger picture, with life and death, and understanding through experience, maybe emotional understanding. So, but here it's described basically as knowing. Wisdom is knowing something as it is, and Geshe gives a definition of wisdom, where he says, generally wisdom is a mental factor able to correctly discern the object of analysis. When this is conjoined with bodhicitta motivation, it becomes a perfection of wisdom. Special insight is a particular form of wisdom that's discussed in detail in chapter 30. So, so that definition sort of leads to questions. It's a mental factor, or you can just say a mind that correctly discerns the object of analysis. So knows something, correctly discerns or correctly knows something. So it sort of does lead to questions, because it sort of suggests there is a correct way of knowing something, and the other ways are incorrect. So in Buddhism's fairly the presentation of conventional appearances and dependent arising is that there's nothing that's sort of correctly known from its own side. Things are merely designated or through convention, through the power of label, through the power of thought and word. So things can be known various ways, like a dog knows a mobile phone is something very different to how you know a mobile phone, and the way an ant knows a mobile phone. So that sort of suggests that there's various different correct ways of knowing an object, depending on the convention of your society, whether it's an ant society or a human society. Yeah, and the traditional examples is a hell being seeing a glass of water as pus, and a hungry ghost, and a god seeing it as nectar, whereas a human seeing it as water, and it's the same glass of substance. So 3 different conventions. So the advantages of wisdom is it eliminates, if you correctly know something, then it eliminates all doubt and confusion and misconception, mistaken understanding, and that prevents stupid actions, basically. Like if you have the misconception that annoying person should be punched on the nose because you're angry with them, then that leads to all sorts of problems. But if you see with clarity that that's not the case and it's not necessary, you see it as it is, then it stops a lot of jail time and sore noses and things. So with bodhicitta, it becomes wisdom becomes a perfection of wisdom, and Geshe likened the Perfection of Wisdom sutras. He said these are the Buddhist Bible. This is like the peak, the can't think of the word, but the most extraordinary part of the Buddha's teachings, the perfection of wisdom. And again, I'll quote from Lord Tsongkhapa, his great exposition. He refers to Nagarjuna's 100 verses on wisdom. He says, wisdom is the root of all good qualities, the seen and the not yet seen. To achieve both of these, embrace wisdom, the great source for what you seek, and for liberation is knowledge. So, esteeming it from the start, adhere to wisdom, the great mother. So there's lots of different types of wisdom. If you break down wisdom, there's profound wisdom that knows more subtle subjects. There's clear wisdom, which is very clear. It discerns objects precisely. You know things precisely, very clearly. There's rapid wisdom, where you understand things probably without having to go through much study or analysis. You just naturally have that wisdom, knowing those things. And there's extensive wisdom, which you might have for example, with the path to enlightenment, it's said to be it's unusual because it's a complete path. There's lots of different teachers and traditions with some parts of the path, but not the entirety, including, embracing renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. So extensive wisdom is, extensive in its scope. And then there's the wisdoms of listening, thinking, and meditating. They're described at the start of this book as being essential. They're what we're trying to cultivate with regards to all the subjects of the path to enlightenment. And I think at the start of the Lamrim, Ashvaghosha gives the 10 or 20 benefits of listening to the Dharma. So listening to the Dharma, such as it's the best medicine that has no side effects. It's like similar to a lamp that illuminates darkness. It's your best friend because it can be relied on. It never lets you down, and so on. So these that type of wisdom of listening, we need to develop. Then, of course, the Buddha said, don't accept what you listen to. Don't accept, but use your own analytical power to examine it and pull it apart and look for absurdities and see how it fits in with other Buddhist teachings. See if it why it might be beneficial, and if it all makes sense, then if we like, we can focus on it and develop our practice in it. And then there's the wisdom of meditation, so where we more deeply make it part of ourselves. We internalize the Dharma through practicing concentration, thoroughly and deeply acquainting our mind with that Dharma. So Tsongkhapa, it's necessary to study to develop wisdom. Some people sort of scoff at intellectualism, but certainly Tsongkhapa very strongly emphasized it, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama also emphasizes this. Learning the scriptures, and rather than just a generalized idea without precision. So quite often that sort of anti-study, anti-intellectual thought, it can be like a distortion, where Shantideva said, practically apply this, mere words accomplish nothing. And then taking away from that study, it's a misunderstanding, obviously. Shantideva is not saying don't study, but if we do study, we need to try and apply it to our minds. So, Lord Tsongkhapa in the Great Exposition, he spends about 3 pages really emphasizing how essential study is. And I'll read a few quotes. He says, "Do not make study and practice into separate things. Rather, the very thing that you practice must be exactly what you first study and reflect upon." He also said, "Those who wish to properly practice the teaching need a broad study of the standard scriptures and their commentaries, the unexcelled cause that gives rise to the wisdom which thoroughly distinguishes phenomena, which is the sacred life force of the path. If you are a person who possesses a little faith but no wisdom, you are like the leading edge of water running downhill. You go anywhere you are led." So, Tsongkhapa, it's worth reading that. He really emphasizes we need to take study seriously and not just assume we've got the essence because we've got a bit of an idea. We need clarity and respect for the teachings. And it's very easy for us. I mean, if you're like me, I'm embarrassed I haven't done enough study, particularly of Geshe's 9 texts, which are very clear and laid out perfectly for us in beautiful English, and so many marvellous quotes that Geshe has pulled from his encyclopedic knowledge into these texts. So, we need to study them. So, with regards, Geshe then talks about the benefits of wisdom, how one is led to meditate on wisdom. He says here, I'll read a quote from Geshe. "It's wisdom that enables one to discern what to practice and what to abandon, what is virtue and what is non-virtue, what will benefit others and what will not. Wisdom enables you to achieve benefit for both yourself and others. Without wisdom, enlightenment recedes into the distance." So, that's a bit like, just like your hairline as you get older recedes into the distance, and then you're stuck with a problem of not knowing when to stop washing your face. So that's a bit, we don't want that enlightenment receding into the distance as well. So on page 772, from the Condensed Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, it says, "The millions of blind who are without a guide do not know the way. How will they enter the city? Without wisdom, the 5 perfections have no eyes, and without a guide, you cannot reach enlightenment." So, excuse me. I forgot to bring some water. Okay. So, a blind person with a very strong body but no eyes, they can run, but they don't know where to go. So that's analogous to the 5 perfections without wisdom. Wisdom's like the eye or the clarity. It removes all the obstructions from our other practices. It turns them into pure practices, pure of delusion. Delusion depend on ignorance. and wisdom removes the veil of ignorance. So with wisdom we can discern what to practice and what not to do, what's virtuous and what's non-virtuous, what's the result of this cause, what's the cause of this result, and so on. So it's with wisdom we understand the path and what we need to do. So again, I'm doing lots of quoting tonight, mainly because the subject's wisdom, and I haven't got much in that department, so may as well rely on these extraordinary lamas, such as Geshe and Lord Tsongkhapa. So on page 215 of this volume 3, or it could be volume 2 actually, Tsongkhapa's commentary on the Compendium of the Perfections explains how wisdom prevents other bodhisattvas' qualities being tainted. So wisdom, it keeps things pure. So a bodhisattva who becomes kings are not controlled by sense objects, as they have the wisdom as their chief minister. A bodhisattva's intense love and affection for all living beings is without mixture with attachment through wisdom. It doesn't get mixed with attachment. A bodhisattva's forceful compassion for all who suffer is without laziness of distress or depression. Again through wisdom, that laziness doesn't arise. The bodhisattva has immense joy, but their mind is free of instability, so there's no distraction, again through wisdom. A bodhisattva has great impartiality, but never neglects for a moment the welfare of living beings, through wisdom. Wisdom does all of this because it is what removes the impediments to achieving a balanced strength in these good qualities. It explains through wisdom you do not need to give up the final nature, the unfindability. Tsongkhapa, sorry, this is me paraphrasing. He explains that through wisdom you don't need to give up the final nature, the emptiness of things, the unfindability of one atom, or the conventional certainty of causes and conditions giving rise to effects. So those two things, the emptiness of inherent, the unfindability of something, and its conventional certainty, arising through causes, conditions, and designation, that they're not contradictory, that they support each other. You can understand this through wisdom. And Maitreya's praise in honour of one worthy of honour, he said, without rejecting the real nature, you are also in accord with the conventional. So again, how the two truths are seen to be one and the same thing through our wisdom understanding that. And there's divisions of wisdom, and the path to enlightenment goes into there's so many different types of wisdom, but there's three divisions given here. Wisdom perceiving the ultimate, so that's our indirect or direct perception of emptiness. Wisdom perceiving the conventional, and here it's described as 5 major fields of study. These are the traditional ones of grammar, medicine, art, logic, and philosophy. So that's not the entirety of a school curriculum these days, and certainly it doesn't encompass things like AI and robotics and gene splicing and quantum physics and so on. But back in the day, they were the main 5 major fields of study. the traditional fields. And and the wisdom how to benefit others, that's the third type, how to skillfully benefit others. Then again Geshe mentions just see how we're going for the 6 supreme qualities. So there's the 3 supreme qualities, like I just mentioned, with concentration. And we can also practice if we're super practitioners with the 6 supreme qualities. So we practice our wisdom with bodhicitta, supreme reliance, supreme object, and that's any subject of the path to enlightenment, or studying emptiness, ultimate truth. So when we study the path to enlightenment, we do so with alternating analysis and then concentration. To analysis to bring the understanding to mind, and then concentration to deepen our experience. And supreme purpose, the temporary and ultimate benefit of all. Supreme method, the 3 cycles of emptiness. So the emptiness of I, the practitioner, and the object of the meditation, and the action of meditating. Then supreme dedication, the enlightenment of all, and supreme purity. So practicing wisdom while trying to keep our mind awake will be a good start, but free from delusion as we practice wisdom. And I'll just finish off with wisdom with all 6 perfections. So generosity with wisdom, where we teach others how to practice. Ethics with wisdom, and we protect our vows, and avoid wrong view. Then patience with wisdom, with mental and physical discomfort. And I think also Geshe mentions, if you have a bit of a wrong view, a nihilistic view, when you first perceive emptiness, it can be scary. It's like you've disappeared. So to have patience with that and not freak out. So that's patience with wisdom, joyous effort with wisdom, so just enjoying the practice, thinking how extraordinary it is, and really engaging it, not hanging out just to watch TV, but really engaging and joyful that you're looking at the key to unlock samsara, the nature of all things. So it's a joyful thing. And concentration with wisdom. So alternating analysis with single point of concentration to so we can fully perceive emptiness. Then wisdom with wisdom. So that's analysing the profound view. There's many different types of analyses to bring us to the middle way view, and and also the 3 cycles of emptiness. So I think I'll just wrap up there, and thanks for listening, and we'll if you do get to listen to this, it means our live stream failed, so we'll have that sorted by next week. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll just finish off with the simple dedication prayers on page 34. By this virtue, may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the 2 holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. May the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it. but increase continuously. Thank you.